episode as a
Oh my God. Wait. Hello. Welcome to I Scream, You Scream. We're the quietest scoop of the most chilling histories, mysteries, and true crime. My name is Kathryn.
I'm Gina.
I'm going to slowly raise my volume up to a normal speaking voice because that is literally going to put me to sleep. Hello. So every month we choose a new topic to discuss and a new ice cream flavor to go along with the topic as we discuss it. This month we are discussing werewolves. Hello. Welcome, new month.
Welcome.
And while we do that, we are going to eat Blue Moon ice cream. So grab a spoon and let's dig in. Which I do have to say right off the bat, I did screw up. Are you prepared with a Blue Moon?
I am.
How
did you screw up? What happened?
Okay. So I was fully prepared. I had everything I needed. And then I didn't realize, I haven't used my ice cream maker in a while. So I didn't realize that I had to freeze the thing for so long.
Yeah.
I thought it just needed like a couple hours, like 2 or 3 max. It needs like minimum 16, ideally 24. So I was like,
the only reason I knew that is because of when I made Cherry Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you wind up with? What do you have?
So I had some raspberry ice cream in the fridge, or raspberry like gelato or something. I don't know what it was. And raspberry flavor or whatever was one of the ingredients that my Blue Moon recipe called for. So I just mixed the other ingredients with the raspberry ice cream, and like I put blue food coloring in it, so now it's just like this deep dark purple color.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
It's very pretty. It tastes very good, but it's not technically what it's supposed to be. But I'll be prepared for next time. But this is bomb. I mixed almond extract, vanilla extract, and a little bit of just almond milk in with the raspberry ice cream or gelato or whatever it is. I don't know. And then I froze it for a little bit just so it wasn't so soupy with the milk. And yeah, it's good.
Mine's not as blue as yours. It's like yours
not
quite
like
neon.
Blue Moon color though. Like that's closer to Blue Moon than mine is. Mine looks like a grape flavored.
I like that though. It's kind of like goth Blue Moon.
Yeah, it does look like kind of like goth ice cream.
Yeah.
It's pretty. It tastes good. What's yours?
The recipe that I used called for vanilla pudding mix, like a tablespoon of vanilla pudding in there. And you can't buy like instant pudding mix. In case any Brits come for me, you can't buy good instant pudding mix in the UK. So I had to special order Jell-O.
Oh man, we're going to get in so much trouble from someone.
This is a hill I will die on. But yeah, it tastes like kind of like bubblegum ice cream.
So that's how I remember Blue Moon tasting. Like when I saw the things that mine called for, I was kind of surprised. Because I remember when I was little, not really I never wanted Blue Moon ice cream because I don't like bubblegum flavoring, and I feel like it always tasted like bubblegum. So I'm excited to try the one I found, and actually make it the way it's supposed to be made, because I love almond flavoring, and I love raspberry, and I love vanilla. So all of those things sound like they're going to be very good together, but I don't know. Is that how you get bubblegum? I don't know. That sounds weird. Because you said it's just an American thing, right?
Actually, I looked it up, and I think it's more of like a Midwest, specifically Michigan thing.
Oh, what?
Yeah. I don't know how true that is. That's what the internet told me.
Maybe it started in Michigan. I've definitely seen it other places. But Midwest, I would say. I believe that. My thing is, it's like a ice cream shop thing.
Yes.
Shop as in SHOPPE, with the tubs of ice cream, like the ice cream counter thing.
Yeah.
I've never seen it sold anywhere. Doesn't mean it's not. I just personally haven't. That's why we both were like, okay, we have to make it.
And it's one of those flavors that's it's very stereotypically for kids. I don't know any adult who would walk into an ice cream shop and order a scoop of Blue Moon. I'm sure they exist, but it's very rare. It's a kid thing.
And also, I think that the flavor, we keep saying it's a bubblegum flavor, and that I think is pretty, I don't want to say universally, but that's pretty largely agreed upon. But at the same time, if you Google what is the flavor of like Blue Moon or like what is in Blue Moon ice cream, there's a lot of discrepancy. It's basically like a mystery flavor, which in and of itself is a very like childlike thing. I don't know.
We can only achieve this through chemicals, and that's what you get, kids.
Yes. Right. This like the leftover ice cream from all the ice cream manufactured from that day, and they just dye it blue.
I kind of dig that.
The hot dog of ice creams.
The hot dog of ice creams. That's even better.
Oh my god, I was going to say that's worse. So gross.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So disgusting. But true. But
I have no idea.
I mean, are those the flavors that you have in yours? What did you add?
It was vanilla pudding mix, raspberry extract, and lemon extract.
Okay, I found one with lemon, but that's not the one I saved. But I was curious about that. In the springtime, I love lemon blueberry.
Oh, yes.
Like so much. That's one
like
of my
a little
favorite
lemon
flavor
blueberry tart, little lemon blueberry muffin.
I made a lemon blueberry cake for Easter a few years ago.
Yum.
So good. It was like my crowning achievement. I might share a picture of it because I was so proud of myself. I do have to address my sleepy mood because I'm sitting here like staring outside at the snowfall and just like being lulled to sleep. So I already warned Gina about this, but I'm warning all of our friends too that if I sound like I'm about ready to snooze, it's just because I am, and this is very much going to like feel. How emotionally strenuous is this story? Is it going to be like a bedtime story, or is it going to like fuck me up?
It might fuck you up a little bit.
Okay, great, cool.
Sorry. I'll try and be gentle.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll just dive right in. Today, I'm going to be talking about Manuel Blanco Romasanta, Spain's first recorded serial killer. Born on the 18th of November, 1809, Scorpio shout out, in the village of Reguero, way up in northwestern Spain, Manuel was an only child. His parents were farmers, and his upbringing featured all of the hardships that go along with growing up with parents who are farmers. Things were fine, but life was not necessarily easy. And that meant that while Manuel was loved and cared for, as far as we can tell, his needs often played second fiddle to everything else the family had going on. His mom and dad did make sure that he went to school, so at a time when a lot of people couldn't read or write, Manuel could, which is great. But his teachers had kind of mixed reviews. One day he would be absolutely fantastic and even brilliant in his coursework, and then the next day he would kind of just shut off and like isolate himself from his classmates and his teachers. And in a world and a time where community ties meant everything, that was not looked favorably upon, even in a kid. And this pattern of Manuel being kind of looked down on continued into his teen years and eventually into his adulthood as well. This is in part because of his physical appearance. So at his full height, he was just under 5 feet tall, which is about 1.5 meters. And he was described as being
sorry, I did not mean to laugh at that. It's just like I've never thought of myself as being measured in meters before.
It's so confusing. So I have no idea how many meters tall I am.
I'm 5'2", so I'm not much taller than this guy. So I too can say I'm roughly 1.5 meters, which like I don't know why I find that so funny. That's because what is a meter's 3 feet, right? Or is that?
I think so. Something like that.
Oh God, this is math that I was not prepared to do.
3.2. You were right.
Okay. Well, what the fuck's a yard then?
What the fuck's a yard? I'll Google it. Don't worry. Because
I remember the yard. Maybe a yard is 3 feet, and then meters. Oh, you said it was 3.2. Yeah.
3.2.
Okay, that makes sense. Because yardsticks. Every classroom had a bunch of yardsticks, and you'd use them as
what
swords
did we?
when the teacher wasn't
Why
looking.
did we have those? I've never once measured anything in a yard.
I don't know why we do any of the things we do when it comes to math. I don't get it. I don't get any of it. Anyway, so yeah. So under, that'd be under.
Yeah. So he was a really small guy.
Yeah.
And he was also described as being tender looking, which might sound like just a very lovely way to call someone kind-hearted, but it was definitely a gendered comment.
That's, Were they saying like, oh, he's soft? Or was it supposed to be
explain.
Okay.
It'll make sense.
Gotcha.
So Manuel's gender identity has been debated for decades. But what we do know is that he was assigned female at birth and lived as Manuela for roughly the first 6 years of his life. Some researchers believe that he was intersex and his related physical traits didn't develop until a little bit later on, which prompted his family to transition him to Manuel. Given the fact that this was a time with more rigid gender norms, it's very likely not a choice that Manuel made for himself. And any sense of individuality or self-expression he did have was filtered through kind of a lens of conformity. This is exacerbated by the fact that when Manuel eventually grew up, he didn't work in traditionally masculine jobs. Specifically, he was a dressmaker and a tailor. That said, he wasn't a complete social outcast. As one of the rare people who could read and write, he had kind of a side hustle going where he would help his neighbors write letters and documents if they didn't know how to read or write. So I think that's pretty kind. That's nice.
Yeah.
If he stopped there, everything would be great. But,
yeah. Team Manuel thus far specifically.
Thus far. To this point only.
Yeah. Right.
At some point, he did get married to a woman named Francisca, but she died very shortly after they were married. Like less than a year later, she died.
Ooh.
Yeah. How she passed away is not clear, but we don't think he was involved in her death, or at least there's no evidence or speculation pointing to this. But ultimately, it is a question mark. And after his wife died, something in Manuel changed, as it would. And he gave up his life as a dressmaker to become something like a wandering peddler. We would probably call him a traveling salesman these days, but back then, peddler, I guess. And that took him all around Spain and Portugal, selling mostly whatever odds and ends he could find. But in particular, he also sold ointments and soaps. And if there's one thing that I know in my years of listening to true crime podcasts, it's that traveling salesmen make for horrendously hard to catch serial killers. So something is a brewing.
I'm literally just thinking that. Yeah. As soon as you said, oh, we'd call him a traveling salesperson today, I was like, oh, shit.
It's like, no. Sundown Motel. It's because wasn't there?
Oh, my God. Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
Ooh,
that's a great book for anyone who haven't read it.
Truly.
Catherine recommended it to me and I was obsessed with it. It's the only horror book that I have read willingly and enjoyed.
Read it last year when I had COVID. I read it in a day. Sorry, I'll get back to the story in just a second. I just loved that book so much. I'm going to read it again soon, probably, because I'm so obsessed with it. And it was like, I was doing that thing where I was like sitting in bed, reading under my covers, and I kept going, oh my God, like out loud. Like I felt like a child reading a book, you know? Oh my God, what a great book.
I could not put it down.
I love all her books though.
I haven't read anything.
She's a great author. You should read The Broken Girls. Was a heartbreaking story, but it's very, very similar. Her name's Simone St. James. This is her latest right here, Murder Road.
Oh,
I haven't read it yet. Great book. Broken Girls is heartbreaking. It follows a very similar style to Sundown Motel. A very similar like story pattern, but it's different. Okay. It's a totally different story. It kind of scared me though. Like it's a very good ghost story. Anyway, sorry to derail, but great book and great comparison because that was such a huge part of that book.
Okay, sweet. I'm gonna add that to my story graph so I remember it to read it later. Because I love
Simone St. James.
Okay,
yeah,
sweet,
great author. Okay, continue. Sorry.
During his time as a traveling salesman / wandering peddler, he got to know the local landscape like nobody's business. So he started another side hustle, which was acting as a guide to those looking to cross the mountains and forests of Spain, because they didn't have
Oh, wow.
yeah, like Google Maps back then or anything. Like, I know we all know it, but you needed a person to like show you how to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And for the most part, yeah, it is interesting. I think I would have loved that job, but not if I was with Manuel. For the most part, the people that he was guiding were women and children who were looking for a better life. And it was kind of a win-win for Manuel, right? So it helped him make money off of his sense of direction, but it also meant that he got to meet more prospective buyers for whatever he was selling. We don't know when Manuel started killing the people he was supposed to be guiding, but the earliest suspicion we have comes in 1834 when Manuel was in his mid-20s. At this time, Manuel agreed to guide another peddler named Manuel. I'm going to call him Ferrero because that's his last name. So he agreed to guide Ferrero on a journey, and Ferrero just straight up disappeared into thin air. A short time later, Manuel showed up at Ferrero's house saying that Ferrero was alive and well, he had reached his end destination, but he had sent Manuel to pick up some of his clothes, so would you please hand them over? Weird as fuck. Manuel was never charged in the disappearance, but he was suspected.
Interesting.
In 1844, a man named Vicente Fernandez visited Manuel to collect a debt of 600 real that Manuel owed to a supplier. And a real was just the Spanish currency that they used back then. And 600 real back then would be today's equivalent of like just over $1,000 in either dollars or pounds, either way you look at it. In response, Manuel killed him. I could not find any information about how this killing actually happened. So if anyone knows, we have a submit link in the show notes. Please tell us, because I would love to have more information about this. But Manuel's connection to Vicente's death was clocked really quickly by authorities, and he was charged with the crime. However, when the police came knocking, Manuel was nowhere to be found. So without a defendant present, Manuel was found guilty in absentia and sentenced to a decade in prison. So this prospect of 10 years in prison really freaked Manuel out. He did not want to be put behind bars. So instead, he chose to go into hiding. Almost a year later, he just dug a hole in the ground and hung out there for a while. Not literally, just he found somewhere to hide.
I was going to say, wait, what? Okay.
No, he did not do that.
Yeah. So he basically just fled.
He just fled.
Like before... Not before sentencing, but before they could
apprehend him to take him to prison. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to was it like a jailbreak or okay? But yes. Okay.
Nah, not a jailbreak. Almost a year later, he would reemerge into society with a fake Portuguese passport under the name Anthony Gomez. This time, he set himself up in a new village, a place called Allaris in the region of Galicia. And once he was there, he did kind of just a bunch of odd jobs. Sometimes he was a cook. Sometimes he was a weaver. Sometimes he was a coconut husk guy, which I guess is a thing.
Sure. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Gotta have a coconut husker.
Yeah. And he could weave it into mats and stuff. I don't know. And he just kind of sold things here and there, including the usual stuff like his soaps and his ointments. So during this time, he became friends with a lot of the women in the village, which, when combined with the fact that he was working a lot of traditionally feminine jobs, led him to be something of an outcast on the men's side of things. But one exception to this rule was the local priest, whose name was Pedro Cid. And Pedro and Manuel developed a really close friendship, but also kind of a weird one. So it's said that Manuel was essentially Pedro's servant. He would accompany him on trips, occasionally stay in his house. Apparently, witnesses described their relationship as very special. I'm going to choose not to read into that, but it seems like there was something going on. Most importantly, though, Manuel continued working as a guide, where he continued to indulge in what was now a murderous habit. It's said that when he selected a victim, he wouldn't kill them right away. Instead, he would take the time to build a relationship with them, usually platonic, sometimes romantic. But the pattern that we see repeated over and over again is that he overwhelmingly targeted divorced or single mothers with little to lose. And after building a little bit of trust with them, he would encourage them to leave Galicia to build a better life for their children, all the while knowing that as soon as he got them out of the safety of their village, he would murder them. Between the late 1840s and early 1850s, Manuel would go on to kill at least 9 people in this way, most of them women and children, under the guise of bringing them to a better life. I know, my reaction exactly. His victims...
I don't like that.
No, it does not get better. Sorry. His victims included 47-year-old Manuela Garcia and her 15-year-old daughter Petra, 34-year-old Benita Garcia Blanco and her 10-year-old son Francisco, 37-year-old Antonia Iand and her daughter Peregrina, Josefa Garcia and her 21-year-old son Jose, and 12-year-old Maris Dolores. And those are just the victims that we know about. He would later confess to murdering 4 additional people. But he didn't stop at just killing them. Instead, once they were dead, he would take off their clothes and sell them. And he would write letters to his victims' families, impersonating his victims and saying that they had arrived at their destination safe and sound.
Okay, can we pause just real quick, both for emotional reasons? And I hate when that happens in murder stories.
Like impersonating victims?
Yeah, the number of times... I feel like just in recent years, I feel like I've noticed how often that has happened, like how many stories that has happened in. And I just, especially now with texting, that's not just in like, oh, and in olden days before phones, they'd write letters and blah, blah, blah. But like even now, that still happens with like texting and stuff. And it just freaks me out because I don't have like a specific texting pattern. Like my text voice is different depending on who I'm talking to. So I'm always so paranoid. I don't know. That's like one of those unreasonable, but I would argue reasonable fears of mine. That's
I
like,
think
how would you know?
That's a reasonable fear. But we need to come up with a code word. We still haven't made a code word.
Wait, I thought we did.
No, because we started talking about what our code words used to be, and then we never said a new one.
Oh my God, I thought that we made one. Okay. Man, why are we so bad at this?
Unless we did, and I forgot it, which makes me also bad.
Well, it's fine because I thought we did, but if we did, I also forgot what it was. But also, unless you knew I was, like, what if, okay, I don't know. We need to, like, add this to our agenda because I'm, like, really freaking out about this. Like, because unless you knew I was missing, like, you wouldn't think to ask for a code word. Well, I guess if I just one day was like, oh, I live here now, I'm fine, don't come looking for me, that would probably be code enough, actually.
I feel like if I thought I would ask you, like, a question that, like, nobody else would know. Like, what was the doodle on the Post-it that you had by your desk for years that I drew you? Oh my God. You know what I mean?
It is so weird that you just said that because I still have a doodle by you on my desk, and I just today moved it from this side of my file thing to this side of my file thing. Literally moments before we started recording. There we go. I moved it. That's wild. Okay, but I'm not going to say what it is because that can be our code.
That's the code. Sorry, nobody else can know. Sorry, guys. Where did I get to? Yes, impersonation of victims. Oh, yes. Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah.
The awful part.
This worked for Manuel for a while, but eventually the pattern just became too obvious to ignore. People in his village started noticing that something was just wrong. This is kind of similar to the village that we talked about in the Ure Grande episode, in that people here trusted each other. This was a community with a delicate and beloved ecosystem. So if something is off within that, people are A, gonna notice, and B, they're gonna fucking talk. They got suspicious that the people who were writing letters to them never actually visited. And beyond that, they would see Manuel sell their clothes. They would question Manuel about it, sure, but he would just say that the women asked him to do this and then bring the money back to them to help start their new life. And to his defense would come Pedro, the priest that we talked about earlier. Apparently, at one point, a local judge was getting suspicious about Manuel's activities, and Pedro told him to shut up because Manuel only took out the despicable. So fuck Pedro.
Ew.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Super ew. I know.
What the fuck? That's despicable.
I know. You're like, I think it's because he was a priest and they were divorced or single
Were
mothers.
they single mothers? Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. They were all. Yeah, I just made that connection. Fuck
yeah,
that
which is
guy.
awful. So awful. And
Gross.
as if that is not horrifying enough, you're not going to like this, I'm sorry. Rumors began spreading that Manuel was making soap from the fat of his victims.
I hate that so much.
I'm going to say it again. People in his town suspected that he wasn't just killing people, he was boiling them down into artisanal human soap and selling it. No one could prove it, but the rumors were enough to turn Manuel from sketchy salesman into actual fucking monster. So hearing the rumors, Manuel was again sent into a panic about getting apprehended, so he fled Galicia to hide out in Toledo. He was all right for a few months. He did some work as a laborer in the fields, but pretty soon his coworkers realized who he was, which fucking snaps for whoever figured that one out. I don't know how they did it, but that's impressive. And word made its way back to the mayor, who arrested Manuel. So just 5 months after arriving in Toledo, Manuel was arrested and finally brought to trial. And the trial itself was a very intense affair. Lasting 7 months and featuring more than 140 witnesses, the trial's transcript is literally thousands of pages long, like over 2,000 pages. Now, there was almost no concrete evidence pointing to Manuel's guilt, but that didn't account for him putting his foot in his mouth. During the trial, he openly admitted to 13 murders, but he said that they weren't his fault because he had been cursed to be a werewolf who couldn't control his actions while transformed.
Oh.
The old werewolf defense.
There you go. Yeah. How do you argue with that?
Free, I guess. Not guilty.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Jesus Christ.
In terms of where he said the curse came from, Manuel said he wasn't sure. Maybe one of his parents, maybe a mother-in-law, which I thought was a bit like, how do you...
those mothers-in-law, they just... If I had a nickel,
I know. Yeah, every time my mother-in-law's turned me into a werewolf, I'd be rich. So he not only... that, but he also said that he was not working alone. He had accomplices. So I'm going to read you a translated version of what he said during the trial. The first time I transformed, I was in the mountains of Cuso. I came across 2 ferocious-looking wolves. I suddenly fell to the ground and began to feel convulsions. I rolled over 3 times, and a few seconds later, I was a wolf. I was out marauding with the other 2 for 5 days until I returned to my own body, the one you see before you today, Your Honor. The other 2 wolves came with me, who I thought were also wolves changed into human form. They were from Valencia. One was called Antonio, and the other Don Gennaro. They too were cursed. We attacked and ate a number of people because we were hungry. This conveniently leaves out the rumors about him harvesting people's fat, but these other werewolves, if they did exist, were never actually found. We don't know if they're real people or if they were invented by Manuel in an effort to shirk some blame. But what Manuel did with his victims' clothing was a Manuel original. So now the court is like, all right, you're a werewolf who can't control your actions, but you're human enough to sell clothes for money. Something here is not adding up. In response to everything Manuel said, the prosecutor basically said, all right, bet. If you're a werewolf, show us the transformation. Manuel responded that, actually, the curse of a werewolf only lasts for 13 years, and my time was up last week. This is a bold defense.
Okay, well, there you go.
And all of
Case
this
closed.
sounds absolutely fucking bonkers to us in a modern context. And it wasn't much
Mhm.
better by back then standards either. But it's worth noting that when all of this was happening, the area in which Manuel was being tried was under a lot of stress. There had been issues with food shortages for a few years at that point, and they were in the middle of a particularly bad famine at this moment. And when something like that happens, you get fear, you get social panic, and you also get scapegoats. I am not saying Manuel was a scapegoat, but I just want everyone to understand that people were even more panicked about this back then than they would usually be. And when there's panic, there's extra legal pressure to get justice. So when Manuel said he was a werewolf, they kind of had to look into it. Specifically, they were looking for signs of something called clinical lycanthropy, which, fun fact, is a real psychiatric condition where you 100% believe that you either can or have transformed into an animal. Despite the name, it's not limited to just werewolves, though. It can be a delusion that you can transform into a dog, a bird, cat, tiger, any kind of non human animal. The court was provided with a report detailing Manuel's phrenology. And for anyone who is not familiar with phrenology, good. It is a very antiquated field where people thought they could measure your mental traits by looking at your skull. It is at best a pseudoscience and at worst just incredibly racist and sexist. But in this case, the report was actually pretty on point. It determined that Manuel was fabricating his story and A, was not a werewolf, and B, didn't actually believe he was a werewolf. Or, it's what the report said. The report, I am going to read you an excerpt from it. So it said, his inclination to vice is voluntary and not forced. The subject is not insane, dim-witted, or monomaniacal, nor were these conditions achieved while incarcerated. On the contrary, he instead turns out to be a pervert, an accomplished criminal capable of anything, cool and collected, without goodness, but acts with free will, freedom, and knowledge. So, outside of looking into him being an actual werewolf, they scoured the area where Manuel is said to have murdered his victims, but they only succeeded in finding 2 bones. The first was a female tailbone in the area where Manuel said he killed Benita and her son Francisco. And 2 weeks later, they found a human skull in the area where Manuel said that he had murdered Manuela Garcia and her daughter Petra. Physicians did say that the skull was female in nature. So, with all of this in mind, the court has enough information to make a decision by this point. It was found that Manuel had the ability to tell right from wrong and that he was more or less a sane man. They concluded that Manuel was using the werewolf story as an excuse to avoid punishment, and the court wound up acquitting him on 4 counts of murder, some due to lack of evidence, but on at least 1 count, they found that the victim actually died from a real wolf attacking them. However, he was found guilty on 9 counts of murder, and he was sentenced to death by garrote, which I didn't realize you could be sentenced to death by garrote, but it makes sense. And he was also ordered to, it's the one, like, it's kind of a piece of string or like a wire or something with 2 pieces of wood on the end, and then you wrap it around someone's neck and you basically choke them out with it.
Okay, interesting. I also think it's interesting that I'm not like defending this person or anything at all or suggesting that they really were a werewolf. But did I hear you say that one of his alleged victims was found to have been killed by a wolf?
Actually killed by a wolf, yeah.
Or
at least there was evidence that they were killed by a wolf.
Yeah.
I find it interesting.
I think that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. He was also ordered to pay 1,000 real per victim in compensation. So 9,000 real total, which today it's actually less than I thought it would be. It's about $19,000 or 15,000 pounds for killing 9 people.
Yeah, it's
on the low side. Maybe I did my math wrong because we're working with multiple conversion rates and time frames here. So that
true.
Could be it.
Well,
but
maybe it. Yeah, I don't know, because it wasn't like he was convicted of murder. This wasn't like an accidental death or something. Okay. That's interesting, because that's about how much, like, the signs you see on the highway, that's about the same as how much it would cost for if you, like, hit a worker. Do you know what I mean? Like a
Yeah. Oh,
construction
yeah.
worker,
Yeah.
you know? But that's not, I would think that
Yeah.
that would be less, because that's not, that'd be like, that's just if you hit them. I don't think that's if they die.
I don't know. I
I
have
don't
no
know. That's
idea.
interesting. That's less than I would expect it to be.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. But if there's like an old currency expert who's listening to this who can provide more information, please let me know, because I'm in the rabbit hole now and I'm ready for more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious to see if there's a reason for that. Maybe the lower it is, the more likely someone like him would actually be able to pay it. Because a lot of times when people, you know, in civil cases, for example, someone gets murdered and then sued for millions of dollars, it's like, okay, that family's never going to see that money because that person doesn't have millions of dollars. You know what I
And
mean?
he
So
did
maybe it's
have
something like
debt
that.
issues. So maybe they took that into consideration.
Yeah. Like something that could actually be plausibly paid out or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
This is just a guess. I have no clue.
I don't know. So eventually, Manuel's case was then sent to a higher court for it to be ratified. But the higher court chose to reduce the sentence to life imprisonment. The original court was like, no, fuck that. And they appealed. And after a hearing in March 1854, the original punishment was upheld. So back to death by garrote. With Manuel in prison and word of the event starting to spread around, journalists wound up visiting him in his cell. And this story, which had already been reported on quite a bit in the press, really blew up and started to get international attention. Meanwhile, in France, a hypnotist named Mr. Phillips, which was a pseudonym, had been following. Oh, I know, stick with me. This is going to sound like
I was going to say.
I know.
Yeah, I was going to say something, and then I was like, you know what? No, let's just. I'm along for this ride.
Trust the process. So a hypnotist named Mr. Phillips, which was a pseudonym, had been following the case in the newspapers, and he wrote a letter to the Spanish Minister of Justice stating that Manuel was suffering from what he called a disorder of the brain's functions and was therefore not responsible for the deaths. Specifically, he suspected that Manuel was suffering from monomania, which is a condition where you are essentially a completely sane person except for one specific thing or obsession. And it's more common than you would think. Things like kleptomania, narcissism, pyromania, all of those would fall under monomania. And in Manuel's case, his obsession just happened to be turning into a werewolf and eating people. Furthermore,
I could see that.
I could see it.
That's wild. That's fucking wild.
That's what I think about every time I wake up. Furthermore, Mr. Phillips said that he had successfully treated this condition in the past through hypnosis, and would you please not kill Manuel yet so I can study the case? Minister of Justice was like, this is kind of fucking weird. And he wrote a letter to the Queen of Spain, Isabella II, who personally commuted Manuel's sentence to life imprisonment on the 13th of May, 1854.
Oh, interesting.
Queen of Spain got involved in this. So, to this day, we don't know who the true identity of Mr. Phillips from France is, but we think he was a doctor named Joseph Pierre Durand de Gros, which is the funnest name ever. But yeah, Joseph Pierre Durand de Gros is an interesting one. So he was a professor of biology and philosophy, and he had been exiled from France at one point because he was kind of a little bit of a socialist. But he came back to France under the name Mr. Phillips / Dr. Phillips. No matter what, doesn't matter who this guy is, he got his wish. He could now study Manuel. But there was a speed bump / roadblock or even a sinkhole. The records from the prison where Manuel was held have long since disappeared, but we believe he died within a few months of arriving. What we do know is that on the 21st of December, 1863, a Spanish newspaper reported thusly. In prison, the unfortunately famous Manuel Blanco Romasanta, known in all Spain as the werewolf as a consequence of his atrocities and misdeeds, and who was sentenced to prison by the court in La Coruña, died in that place on 14 of this month, being the victim of stomach cancer. But to this day, that ending has always been kind of met with suspicion. People aren't really sure how he actually died or if what was in the paper is true. Some people say that he died from an illness like stomach cancer. Some say that he died of a gunshot from a guard who wanted to see him transform. And some say that his cellmates killed him for what he did.
Whoa. That's all of those things are wild. What the fuck? That's like a very large array of types of ways to die.
To not know. In like the 1850s too. Like it's not that long ago.
I'm particularly bothered by the story of the guard.
Mm-hmm.
That feels not good. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like that one either. In terms of his legacy, Manuel is more commonly known these days as the Werewolf of Allariz or the Tallow Man. And modern researchers and historians generally agree with the court that Manuel's claims of being a werewolf were fabricated, and it's more likely that he had some kind of severe psychiatric disorder. But we don't have a formal diagnosis, and we never will. But that's not to say that the evidence isn't still being explored to this day. In 2011, there was a symposium/exhibition thingy of memorabilia related to this case, and the story has even made its way into modern pop culture with 2 movies being made about this. One is called Romasanta, and one is called El Bosque de Lobo. So we're kind of coming to the end here, but to put a bow on things, was Manuel really cursed? No. Was he actually a werewolf? Also no. But he was a brutal and manipulative killer. And as for how he really died, we may never know. Whether it was illness, murder, or one last act of vengeance from a prison guard, Manuel's disgusting and very sad legacy lives on.
That's wild. I have a lot of questions that have no answers. Because that's the whole story is weird from start to finish. I definitely don't doubt that there were some severe mental health things going on, in the way that to land on thinking you're a werewolf feels so specific. I don't know what word to call it. That's such a specific obsession, I guess, if you want to call it that. Delusion, if you want to call it that.
I know. This was a strange one. And it's odd to me because in the process of researching it, despite having 2,000 pages of court transcripts, there's still so much that we don't know. It's so hard to find information on this case.
Yeah. That's interesting because I feel like werewolves are not one that you hear so much about in history. People thinking they're werewolves. I don't know, maybe I just don't hear them. There are people out there who have heard of people thinking they are a werewolf. Genuinely, please let us know. Hit the link in the show notes because I am fascinated by this. I talk to Phil all the time about how I love a werewolf story. That is my favorite type of cryptid or legend or lore type of story. But from a very there aren't that many of them that I know of. Just this blanket statement. You only hear about them from the perspective of this is a fiction story. There's not a lot of people who are like, ooh, are there or aren't there? It's not like ghosts where people are like, ooh, I have a ghost experience. My brain is going all over the place right now.
I know. Yeah. Werewolves have such an
it's
interesting
hard to wonder
place
why.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's hard. It's I always wonder why these things happen. And that is a painful place to be because sometimes it's there are often quote unquote reasons people do things, and they're often nonsensical and hard to digest,
Yeah.
But yeah, what were you saying? I want to hear more about your thoughts on werewolves.
Well, I'm thinking about how, werewolves throughout history, it's not ghosts, like you were saying, or witches, really. But a little bit of a spoiler alert for the next episode I'm going to be doing this month. There absolutely have been mass social panics about werewolves before, and I'm going to dig into some of them.
Yeah, I love that. I'm sitting here like, I kind of think I believe in werewolves, but I'm nervous to say that within the confines. Well, yeah, because I don't want to say it within the confines of this episode, because I don't want it to sound like I'm saying I think Manuel was a werewolf and therefore innocent. Like,
oh no, he would still be
like,
guilty if he was a werewolf.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, would he though?
Yep, he did it.
Okay, but okay, this is where I'm at though. Like, is there a difference between doing it and it being your fault?
Yeah, he still did it. I still find him guilty in the court of Gina.
I'm realizing I'm so excited for Werewolf Month, and I'm also going to struggle with it because I'm like, mine has nothing to do with like crime or mental health or anything. Mine for next week, so we just get to sit back and enjoy a good old werewolf story.
Sweet, I'm into that.
Because like, I think that's why I love a werewolf story, because the lore around a werewolf story is so connected to the human animal instinct, like the animal instinct as a human, and like, are we better than just animals? And like, to your point, we are just evil creatures, you know? But I also love a good moon story too. So I'm curious about that. Did he have any excuse of like, because they didn't have any proof on like the timing of these murders or anything, right? So he didn't have to be like, oh, see, look, they all happened when it was a full moon or anything like that. That makes it harder to like.
And he also, based on
him
it doesn't sound like it was a full moon thing either. Based on his accounts, it was just kind of he would randomly turn into a werewolf for short periods of time, sometimes for a few days at a go. And that's just how it would just be completely random.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm realizing I don't know when the moon came to be part of it.
Oh, I know what I'm Googling tonight.
Yeah. But you know what's fun? I just realized today is a full moon. It's the 100% full moon tonight.
What a great day to start Werewolf Month.
Yeah. Yeah. Not today when we publish, just for all you listeners. Sorry, you missed it. I'm talking about the moment we are recording. It is
the past times. Okay. History.
Yes. Hello.
So yeah.
Yeah. This is interesting. This is a hard one because, I mean, it's so sad when these things happen in general, but the nonsensical ones and the ones that are like, these were vulnerable people trusting this person, when I'm feeling very hindsight is 2020, when I'm like, oh God, they should not have been trusting him. How could he do this? That's so sad. Like, just to know that he was taking advantage of their trust to like help them to like a new life or whatever is so sad to me.
It's so disgusting.
Like, it's like that particular, it's like extra sneaky and manipulative versus just, I'm going to go on a rampage and not target anyone particular. Like, he knew who he was targeting.
Yeah. And the fact that, I mean, murdering anyone is not okay, but kids, I mean, come on.
I know. It's a classic, like, women and children first, you know? I know. Like, they're the ones that are supposed to be, like, protected, you know, and often the least so, sadly. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm sorry that was kind of a heavy episode on a sleepy snow day, but I thought...
They're all heavy at this point.
If you want, we could recenter ourselves a little bit with a nice tarot pull.
Yeah.
Yeah? I feel like we haven't done that in a while.
Wait, a full moon tarot pull?
Yeah,
just
let's do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yay.
Are you going to pull for us, or how are we doing this?
I have no idea. I've put no thought into this.
Oh my God. Why don't you just own it? You can pull for just vibes. Okay. Are we including, actually, let's not do it for the whole world, because the world is so scary right now. Let's just do it just for us.
Let's do it for you.
Yeah, us and our nearest and dearest, the two of us and our little spoons.
Okay, is there a specific like question you want me to put into it, or is this just putting energy and getting cards out?
Let's just. That's a great question. I don't know. You lead the way. My energy is not helpful right now.
Okay.
Oh, I have to breathe. Okay.
I'm going to do one card, and if we need clarifying cards.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want you to do literally whatever calls to you.
I'm going to read out every single card. All right. You ready?
I think so.
2 of Swords.
Oh, interesting.
I
Okay.
don't remember what that one means.
I don't know if I've ever gotten Two of Swords.
I'm going to refer to the guidebook. Okay. Interesting. So this is blocked vision stalemate. The Two of Swords depicts two opposing forces that have reached a stalemate. You cannot progress forward with either a relationship or a life decision. There is an answer that's being blocked, maybe by choice. Many times this card will indicate you do not wish to face the truth that the light will reveal.
Oh my god, that shit's deep. We keep getting these deep, heavy cards.
I just want a fun one.
Yo, that might be my energy because the next 2 weeks of my life, I am just like literally dreading. After the next 2 weeks, immediately the next day, greatest portion of my life ever. But like the next, like, not even 2 weeks.
Maybe it's that. Maybe it's your life is on hold for a few weeks.
Literally 2 weeks from today of recording, it's like smooth sailing for me emotionally. But until then, I am just like,
maybe that's the stalemate. Maybe it's that just might be.
Yeah, that might be my energy. Do it just for you now. See if it's different. It's gonna be like.
What if I pull it again? No, I'm gonna.
Yeah, that might be me dragging all of us down. I'm sorry, everybody.
Oh no!
Okay, are we done pulling tarot?
It doesn't look happy. Hold on.
Oh no, wait, which one is it? Tell me what it is.
8 of Wands. Sudden movement or change. The 8 of Wands strikes like lightning. It's a card of news, change, or clarity in an unresolved situation. You might hear from an old friend out of the blue or receive some surprising news that shifts the direction of your course. This card sometimes means literal movement is on the horizon, so be ready to travel if the opportunity arises. That's actually perfect because Tom and I were talking about doing a little weekend getaway in March. So maybe that's what it's talking about.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, let's go with that one.
Let's go with that one. We're all going to go on vacation.
Yeah, excellent.
I'm excited for the next 2 weeks of your life to be over.
Me too. Yeah, me too. I'm excited for life after the next 2 weeks. I'm going to phrase it that way because I don't want it to sound like anything bad's happening. I'm just like,
there's just a lot of stuff. Just a lot of stuff.
There's like, yeah. And yeah, I'm excited for Werewolf Month. This one kind of fucked me up because my brain was still in the fun werewolf lore type headspace. So it's interesting. I'm realizing there's all these werewolf things I just don't know because the extent of my knowledge is just like full moon, fun, like inner conflict, and that's it.
I know. I've like never delved into werewolf folklore or anything surrounding it really. So I'm really excited for this month. I feel like it's going to be a lot of stories that I haven't heard before, which I love.
Yeah, well, you've heard next week, but I'm going to do my best to...
But I know
give you
the version
details.
That people tell little kids. That's what I know. I don't know it as an adult. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I can edit that out if it's too much of a spoiler, but...
It's not. No.
Okay.
It's fine. Yeah, so thank you for joining us. I'm so sorry I'm like falling asleep right now. I love a snow day. Please remember to rate us wherever you're listening to us. And yeah, until next time, Little Spoons, keep it cool.
Keep it creepy.